Okay, let's just get on the road here. I'm going to make the hypothesis that we have very little variance. I'm going to ask you what your answers were, but I'm assuming most people ended up putting the same thing. Yeah, just speak up like last time. Just yell it, belt it, scream it. Maybe not scream it. What did we put for the first one? What was the first word that came to mind? Okay, wait, I heard mostly down. If you put down, raise your hand. What was the other one? Side? Yeah. Side, okay. Anything else? No. Heavy? Light? Handed, okay. That's fine. No. No, it's just whatever comes to mind first. So I'll get into this distinction in a little bit. 3, 2?
2.
2. B? To be, okay. Anybody else put anything? Or it was amongst those three? Reasonable. True?
False.
Is that what everybody put? True love, okay. You've been reading a lot. Happy? Birthday, okay. Left? Foot?
Gone.
Left what?
Gone.
Okay. Okay, that's an interesting one. So it's like a synonym. Walk?
Run.
Float?
Sink.
Okay. Correct?
Incorrect.
Okay. Brave?
New world. Timid.
Okay, brave, scared, timid, movie. Inside?
Man.
Cole first. Inside thought. T-H-O-T, T-H-O-U-G-H-T. Okay, just wanted to clarify. What was it? What did other people say? Inside, out, outside?
Man.
Inside man? Interesting. Okay, then animal. Crackers, okay. Crackers and, what did we put?
I said dog.
Dog, zoo, something related to an animal. Okay, that's, okay, there should be a slide here. This is an interesting exercise. We're gonna come back to this. I don't want to spoil it too much, but yeah, I won't spoil it too much, but I will make a comment here. This is going to be useful for later on in the lecture. I will make a comment here. The way that my advisor teaches this, she cites the sort of like historical use case of an exercise like this. I don't want to say it's like particularly, obviously wasn't useful, but there are different forms, different ways in which people answer these questions, and one of them is more continuous. Another one is more semantically related. So I think most people ended up providing the opposite, so to speak. We'll use that word. So like up, down, heavy. What do people put? Light, true, false, happy, sad, that sort of thing. And historically, that was viewed as having a healthy mind. Sorry, Cole. Having a mind that was able to hold competing ideas together and having a very clear semantic relationship between those words. Now, people like Cole, who I actually fall into the same category, so I'm quite amenable to that, end up doing something more predictive, which is to say, predicting the next word that would be entailed by this word. Again, we're going to get into this later, but does anybody remember? Actually, never mind. We're not going to get into that. Just keep these in your journal. Keep these in mind. We're going to revisit those. There's a point to this madness. And we're going to keep those in mind because we're going to cover antinomous reasoning, antithetical reasoning, and obviously we're going to get into the difference. But from a bird's eye view, it's a question, antinomous reasoning and antithetical reasoning is about opposites and how they're related. So this exercise, because normally most people will end up doing something antithetical, something that is the opposite, and there is a similarity between these two forms of reasoning. They are related to opposites. That exercise will be useful forthcoming. So, like I was saying, They are similar. Both deal with objects or events that are differentiable. Here we're using the word conflict, that they conflict with each other. There's something about them that makes them antinomous or antithetical to each other. We discussed the definition, just the basic etymology of antithesis, antithesis. Thesis is a claim, anti is the opposite. So when you look at these words here and you're trying to remember what they are, look at the prefix, anti, anti. That should give you a very clear signal that we're dealing with a form of reasoning that relates to the opposite of each other. Hopefully we know what analogy and anomaly is at this point, but yes. And so then the question is, we're not at the question yet. These forms of reasoning, because they are dealing with objects or problems that are differentiable, that might be on a spectrum or might be just binary in their differences, are generally more complex. They appear to develop later as you become more intelligent and your prefrontal cortex develops. I think it's like common folk psychological knowledge that your prefrontal cortex doesn't develop until the age of 25. Yes. You're doing my job for me. It's not entirely correct. So there's variability, obviously, with any of these brain developments. The brain's a really unique organ. All organs are unique, but the brain is really unique given epigenetics or social circumstances. You might have delayed maturation or whatnot, but that's not. Let's just say that there's a range of normal development that's around 25. This is unimportant for this, but these sorts of the ability to solve these problems, so to speak, or the not the ability, the propensity at which you are able to solve these problems increases once you have a fully developed brain, so to speak. So we've discussed how antinomy, just the concepts, are similar, right? We're just starting from this base shared position. We know, especially if we just look at the names, anti, it's about contrast or differences between objects or problems. Antinomies, so if we think about like the broad types of problems, if we have a comparison between objects, in antinomy, we want to consider that to be binary. Do we know what binary is? It's this or that. You are either dead or alive. Now, there are a number of philosophical problems that we could delve into. We could say, you know, what is really considered death? Right? We could, but like, there's not really a point in distilling it down to that. Like, we could be very clear. The binary is, I am in this room. I am holding this water bottle. I am not holding the water bottle. Binary, this or that. Every year there's always a number of people who are like, well, how can we really, nothing's really binary. And yes, sure, theoretically. But just for the function of this, something's either a 0 or a 1. Something exists or does not exist. There are problems in the world for which things are categorical. Do we know what categorical means? In statistics language, there is not a distribution. You are either labeled as this or that. You are a student, or you are not. That is antinomous. Antithesis, however, is also dealing with contrasts. This contrast is very apparent here, this or that. But antithesis, when we're dealing with contrasting ideas or objects or problems, is more on a spectrum or a continuum. So if antinomy, if we want to write this down, deals more with discrete categories or discrete differences, antithesis also cares for differences, but they fall on a spectrum. Does anybody have any concept of what a spectrum might be of opposites? Or what is something colloquially, this should be really easy, that people have always, in our Western society for the last 100 years, what's something that people thought was very antinomous, but then when you kind of dig down into it, a lot of people now say that it is more of a spectrum or antithetical in nature. Autism's one of them, yes. Politics, sure, yeah. Anything else? Gender, yes, that's been a big one. Is that big that was like really big when I was in undergrad. Everyone talked about that, more or less. I don't know if it's big. Yeah, it came up in this class too. But the idea is, and why I asked for these is, sometimes, again, if we're dealing with things that are different, sometimes it's more useful to conceptualize something as being discrete and categorical, having two distinct different views of a thing, or something as having a spectrum. The question is utility. It's all about utility. Is it valuable to think of autism as a discrete category? Let's do some thinking here. What do we think? No. Anybody saying yes?
I mean, it's not what we mean by discrete, because even now, I mean, it's not like, I mean, it's kind of like when autism is a spectrum, that's more so based on like various symptoms and like, and so it's still kind of very.
You're answering the question
so
that you
like
posed.
Yes and no.
Well, is it useful to think of somebody as having autism or not having autism?
It depends on the context, I would say.
Okay, so what we will not try to do, what we'll try to avoid is, and I think this is a problem of not clearly specifying, in a clinical practice for which you are trying to give somebody treatments or protocols, is it useful to just say you fall into the group of autistic people or you don't?
No, because you need to know what specific interventions they need.
Right. So like I was saying before, it's a question of what is more useful and what is not, how we want to categorize things. And in this case, it is quite not useful to know, to just categorize anybody that is on the autism spectrum and grouping people in this way or that way. Now, if you were, let's say, an insurance agent, a medical insurance agent, they would probably make the claim that having something like this is more useful, but to what end? The end of denying people care or not, right? It's a quick legal definition that you might be able to make more money off of. So again, this isn't to say that things necessarily relate. This is not to say that like having this representation of the problem, having a binary representation or spectral representation maps onto reality. It's a question of how is it, which one is more useful in addressing the problem. Does that make sense to everybody? It's a question of representing the data in the world, a representational question. Okay, so antinomy, binary, this or that. Antithesis, just think of it as a spectrum. Okay, probably should have went to this slide first. This is a clear definition. If you didn't like the definitions that I gave earlier, if you didn't write them down, I would recommend writing this down. It's probably going to be in your learning demonstration at some point. Okay, any questions? We've kind of knocked this one fairly on the head. Key point here, there's nothing between the two. This or that, 1 or 0. Yes or no, no maybes. Yes, okay. I gave this example earlier. We have another, we discussed other examples. I just want to make sure that this is clear with everybody, right? No questions, pretty straightforward. Okay, so now we're going to look at how we actually solve some of these problems. So do we remember what the 4 steps were? You speak a little louder. Yes. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to be mean. That was rude of me. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. Can you say that again? Or anybody?
Encode, infer, map, apply.
Okay. Thank you. So the first step, encoding. When you encode the problems, in the same way we did it with analogy and anomaly, we want to examine each element in the set, right? So we have a group here. We want to make sense of what's going on here. What is the pattern, looking at each individual object? What is the information that defines each element in here? What is the information that defines the relationship between each object? And then we want to do something similar here. So let's take a moment and do that. Anybody want to describe some information about the elements in set A or the sort of relationships between the objects in set A? Yeah, Duffer.
There's 3 odd numbers in set A and 1 even. And
Okay.
there's 3 even numbers in set B and 1 odd number.
Okay, yeah, we agree. Yes?
Set A is all prime numbers. Set B is all
They are all right. Okay, so 63 is divisible by 3. 22 is divisible by 2. 4 is divisible by 2. 12 is divisible by 2. 2 is divisible by 2 and 1 only. 19 and 1 only. 41 and 1 only, right? 41 is a prime number? Yeah, okay, and then 11. There was one number that I was thinking about the other day, 57. 57 is not a prime number, but for some reason I was thinking 57 was a prime number. Right? 57 is not a prime number. Right, okay. Okay, so when we infer, we determine what all the elements have in common, right? We did this, then repeat this process. Okay, we're going to skip that step. Then we try to map. Again, we kind of did this in our answer already. What are the defining characteristics? Again, we already know what these processes are. We hit on these points here. And when you apply, you decide the correct set in which the new, oh, okay. So then this is the final part of this question. So we have a clear understanding of how set A functions. We have a clear understanding of how set B functions, what the patterns and relations are. And so then the question here is, for each one of these numbers, which element or which number goes into each set? I think after we've walked through it, it should be fairly straightforward, right? If the question is, we've identified that the unifying principle for all objects in the set, what is it that they all have in common that defines the totality of the set, prime versus non-prime? The question of where should 7 go? Set A or set B? 54, B, 82, 19. Yay, 19 is a cool number. This is like a very basic question. The idea, again, is we want to be identifying the attributes, the features of objects when we encode them. We want to then map this onto the question or the process of inference. Then we're going to map this, the relationship between the two. And then we're going to apply that information in relation to other information. So this is very clear. The binary here is what? Prime versus non-prime. You are either prime or you are not prime. Okay. Antithesis, remember, is the spectrum. It's the continuum between opposites or polarities. Right. This should be fairly straightforward when we're dealing with spectrums. Let's think of examples. One example might be politics. Again, it's a spectrum, so whatever our poles are, that's fine. But Right, so give me some political ideologies or parties or whatever that fall on a spectrum. I know this is America and there's really only two. That's not true. It's not true. There's a lot more representation in the United States. It's just, there's a lot more thought in the United States. It's just not represented well. Okay, so yeah, so what do we got here? Okay, let's do one at a time. Okay, communism. Where's communism go? Okay, which side? Just traditionally speaking, how would people conceptualize it? We know this, right?
Is there left or right?
Oh, I thought you were saying. I thought you were looking at the white or black.
Oh, no. Just think of this as left. Think of this as right.
Okay, left.
Okay, we'll put it over here. Sure. What else do we got?
On the left of the
Just on the spectrum.
fascism?
Okay, where are we putting that?
On the right?
Okay, nice. Yeah, is this representative of electoral politics? Okay. We have communism and fascism. Socialism. Okay, where are we putting that? A bit? Okay. Wow. I want to write this down. I kind of want to know what our representations are as Americans age 18 to 22. Okay, and it's going to be here. Okay, so we have, we're going to go with the big C for communism, and then we're going to go with the big F for fascism. What do we have? Where's socialism? I want to vote. I want it by like sound. People like just yay, nay. Okay, this is where we want to put socialism. You got it, then help us out. Yeah, okay.
More left.
Left, 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 left.
Put it there. Stop.
Here? Sure, Claire, you're a representative of the socialists. Okay, is this good with everybody?
Yeah.
This matters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Behind the pole.
Socialism. Okay, what else do we have?
Neoliberalism?
Okay. Does everyone know what neoliberalism is? Really? Actually, this is not a rhetorical question. Okay, this is going to be a little impromptu. The United States has very storied history of political parties and political ideologies. After World War II, right, which the United States won but was a part of, they weren't the sole reason. They actually weren't the predominant reason why World War II was won, right? We know this. What country had the most number of deaths and sacrifices in World War II? It was Russia. Russia was a major, major factor in winning World War II. But what happened after World War II? The United States entered. The United States had access to resources that war-torn Europe did not, that Russia did not. We also had the Manhattan Project, right, which was the nuclear bomb.
Did I mention that
Yes. But yes, so that happened. We won, part of the winning team, so to speak. But we were in this interesting position as a country and in the world. There's this concept in international relations called hegemony. This is like a good illustration. Who is the superior military power in the Western Hemisphere? Is it North America? Who's more superior, the United States, Canada, or Mexico?
United States.
Okay, and what do we do with it? We enforce rules and regulations. There's the Monroe Doctrine instituted by President Monroe, 5th President of the United States. The idea was nobody's going to mess with South America because we are the regional hegemon. We have power. Nobody's going to come in. We're going to use our Navy. We set the rules here. That's how things operated in the Western Hemisphere for 100 years. And then all of the major powers that could attempt to meddle in the Western Hemisphere, but also in Europe, Africa, and Asia, are suddenly decimated. China goes through a cultural revolution. great instability. They had issues with Russia and the Japanese. Europe is war-torn and decimated. The only regional superpower in Europe was, who was also on our team that was really instrumental in winning World War II? I just said them, the USSR, right? But we have nuclear weapons, we have greater industrial capacity, we have et cetera, all these great things. We are the regional hegemon. Now we are the world hegemon. We are the world leaders, so to speak. We set the rules. We create international institutions, the United Nations. We created it. Those rules were created by us. We gave a lot of money to Europe to help rebuild. There was a question of the United States being able to dictate the world. The concept of America becoming the world's police, you've heard that before, right? Comes from this very unique predicament in world history where a world war has just happened and the United States, who has superior economic ability and the ability to mobilize people, is on top, almost unscathed, because again, we entered the war very late. FDR brought us into the war, saying that he wasn't going to, then he died, and then Truman took over, and then et cetera, et cetera. But the point here is, since then, the set of rules and regulations, the political ideology that has been instituted and that has been so fundamental for this current world order is neoliberalism. It's the idea of open markets, right? Capitalism, whether we like that or not, is up for debate. And a very particular way in which we negotiate politics. Now, you can say that that has been successful or not, but the point is, for the last 80 years, there has been a very clear, demonstrable set of rules and regulations that have essentially governed, or philosophy, that has governed both Republican and Democratic norms and how people guide institutions. That's neoliberalism. Now, there's a big question now how that's going to continue. You have people on the far right who are saying, we don't like the neoliberal world order, the neoliberal order that we have in the United States, and there are people that say, this is good. They say, what happened in Germany gives this a bad rap. You have people saying, hey, what happened in the USSR gives this a bad rap, or in Cambodia, which I hope you understand the allusions to both of those, or all three of those. And so I'm just going to put this right here, neoliberalism. Right, this is like the rise of the bureaucratic state. This is the rise of like major universities as being like centers of, liberal ideological thought. There's very, you guys know what the Overton window is? The Overton window is the, where's this? This is, we have time, don't worry about this. The Overton window is the, I don't know how you spell this. The Overton window is the window of acceptable thought or parlance, like what you're allowed to say. Parle meaning speak, French. Parle is speak for French. But what you are able to say within common, polite, or intellectual society. And so you guys are really young, but the sort of things that you would hear on the far left, or like in the Democratic Party that we hear now about capitalism's bad, we don't want any of this, we want to move towards a more egalitarian society, was not an acceptable thing to say. Barack Obama's idea for having Obamacare was radical, right? Whether we agree with it or not, it was radical. The idea of talking about race or ethnicity or talking about building a wall is much farther right than what American society was used to before Donald Trump. It was another reactionary movement. And so the space of acceptable discourse, the Overton window, has opened a lot. So anyways, this was not the topic for today, but there are big questions about what is the role of an educator, civic duty, et cetera, et cetera. This is a perfect example of having an antithetical structure or spectrum of different political ideas. I also just think it's really important for us to know some basic history about political ideology in the US. You are all of voting age. You are students, but you are also my peers. You are also citizens, so I just think that's important. We can have more discussion about this later, but I just really wanted to you should know what communism is, you should know what fascism is, you should know what neoliberalism is, you should know how that relates to you, economic policy, public policy, all of those things. But okay, we got a little sidetracked. The point is, politics, you can view it as a spectrum where you can put things in different order. The question that I have here is, how were we able to put things on the spectrum? What was the set of rules or ideas that allowed us to do this? Like, why didn't I just put, why didn't I put fascism over here? All right, let's put this down here. Why didn't I put fascism down here? Why didn't I put, socialism down here? Why didn't I put neoliberalism here? Or why didn't I put, like, everything just on this line? Set of rules and preconceived notions. We compared them relationally, right? These classes are on relational reasoning. Antithetical reasoning is a part of relational reasoning. The only way you can have a spectrum is by looking at a thing, comparing two things, and then determining across some set of attributes which one, on however we construct the spectrum possesses more of an attribute or less of an attribute. So if we look at this, we might say that if the governing structure, if we're looking at the attributes of the governing structure, let's say democracy is the governing structure, or freedom of thought is the governing structure, then that might look different. If we knew a little bit more, we might say that it might be easier to identify. But if we said freedom of thought, or we said that the spectrum is like the ability to have freedom of speech, right? We all know what that is. We all know where that is in the Constitution. Which amendment? Thank you, Taylor. Freedom of speech, if that's the spectrum that we're looking at, let's see if we can do this. And let's say this is more freedom of speech on the left, and let's say this is less freedom of speech. Where would we put fascism?
Less.
Okay, where? We're going to put all these on. So where would we put this?
90%.
Here? Here? Yeah? We okay with that? Given our understanding of fascism? Okay. Where would we put socialism?
Depends on the implementation.
Just, sure. Imagine like democratic socialists in like Norway.
Pretty far to the left.
Pretty far to the left? Yeah, okay, yes. So let's put this like right here. What did I say, socialism? What about communism? Implementation.
Implementation, right.
Sure, but like there's a reasonable bound of all the set of communist states, right? You go to like USSR, you go to Cambodia, you go to, I don't know, where else? Vietnam. I'll give this to you. It's like around here too, like, or maybe we put it even closer to fascism, right? And then neoliberalism. We live in a neoliberal world order. We live in a neoliberal state, the state of Maryland, but also the state of the United States. Where do we think our freedom of speech rights are? Is it beyond socialism?
Not now.
I would argue with that. I'm going to say it's yes. It's probably the most. We have the most liberal, neoliberal free speech laws in the world. We'll just go neolib or liberal. Just because the president sends the FBI after you because you post a meme does not mean that you still don't have the legal rights under the law. It's a question of adjudicating those rights, but which is important. But the point here is, if we just looked at freedom of speech as the metric for the spectrum, we're going to get a different organization. If we have another set of rules by which we're comparing, then we're going to get different layouts for the spectrum, whatever it is. Does that make sense? I know we kind of got bogged down in the political aspect of it. Again, I would feel quite remiss if we didn't actually get into that. Clear? Clear? Okay. I think our example was a little more detailed. But let's say these are the two ends of the spectrum, or the points at which we're describing the spectrum. What might be in between colossal and diminutive? Do we know what diminutive is? Really small. Like diminishing, diminutive. Do we know what colossal is? The colossal of Rome, it's big. What's a word that fits in between those two? Medium, okay. Maybe we put that here in the middle. What's another word?
Large.
Large, okay. So if medium's here, large is going to be to the right. What else do we got?
Small.
Okay, what's even smaller than small? What? Tiny. Okay, what's smaller than tiny? Minuscule. What's even tinier than minuscule? Okay, is that after diminutive or before?
After diminutive.
After diminutive? Okay, yeah, I agree.
We broke the spectrum.
We broke the spectrum, yes. Again, going back to elementary school math, remember these show, they continue. Okay, we did that. Okay, I think we just did this. For this item, select the word with a meaning that fits somewhere. Do we have an answer? I think this is a good little exercise.
You said somewhere in between.
I'd say C.
Yeah. Okay. Let's start. Who thinks it's A? Raise your hand. Who thinks it's B? Okay. Who thinks it's C? Okay. Who thinks it's D? Nobody. Okay. I think based on our discussion, and also just looking at the strict definitions of the word, microscopic is smaller than diminutive. So we can cross that one out. Nobody fell for that one. The question that we want to think about, again, is what is the attribute of this word? What is the attribute of this word? If they're on a spectrum, whatever word has to be in here has to be a word that matches those attributes, or the core attributes of that word matches. So if one of the core attributes for diminutive, there are a number of attributes about it, but one is size, a very small size, and colossal is also about size. That seems to be the core attribute that relates the two, but it's a very big size. Our answer has to do something with size. The question here is, does bony have anything to do with size? We could make the claim, right? We could say, colloquially, somebody might be described as bony. I don't think that's very nice to say. But if we're looking at the features of this word, how the words are generally used, this is not to say that this is a wrong option, but there are probably better options that are strictly about size as opposed to describing the features of a person, right? What about heavy? What do we think about heavy? For a similar reason, right? And then what about petite? Petite has the more broad